Welcome, everyone. It's the Mike Tech Show, show number 894. Tonight, going to talk about creating bootable USB sticks. That came up last week in the chat, and then I have also a recommendation. Going to talk about an Adobe cleanup and a problem I still have. Going to talk about 23andMe data breach. Have listener emails and a couple things that happened, including something from this morning that I had to help a client, and what I did very quickly to help him with this email where he was just getting crushed with spam all of a sudden, and a tip from a listener that was in the chat before the show. So, why don't we get to the tips first? This is from Steve, and in the pre-show he posted this in the chat. He says, I have a tip for people supporting Sage 50. And he continues, in my case, Sage 50 on a Windows Server 2019 was locking up whenever attempting to send an invoice using the default email program, not webmail. Before going through all the Sage email writer repair steps, first check to make sure that the default email app has not changed to blank in Windows default app settings. This was missed by our Sage hosting company, Sage. That's horrible. And I can relate a little bit to that to QuickBooks, where after updates, they've changed for sending out invoices, instead of Outlook, they changed it to something else. Why? Why is any update playing with config changes, which of course happens all the time in the network settings, as we all know from Windows updates. So, Steve, thank you very much for that tip. Here's one. I get a panic call from a client this morning, and as a matter of fact, this plays into, it's my client that's taking me to a hockey game next Thursday night. So no show next Thursday night, the 18th. The show will be on Saturday at 2 p.m. Eastern time on the 20th. And the client this morning says, Mike, I am being crushed with thousands of spam. And it was from a tech support where they were, I don't know why they were sending to an undisclosed list of a lot of people. And it wasn't blind copied. And what happened, everybody in the list replied all, of course, requesting to be removed from the list. So it just kept coming in. And then their response kept going out to everybody. And so the first thing I did was right click and added the sender to junk in Outlook. That was one, but that wasn't enough, because of everybody replying, now you're getting hundreds and hundreds of people replying. So I quickly created a rule. Every single email had a case number in the subject line. So I created a rule that any inbound message containing that case number would automatically go to the deleted folder, and that started calming everything down. What I have to double back, I've been so busy today. I want to know, hopefully, I would love to get a final count before he empties his deleted items and empties his junk mail. I mean, it's still coming in, and he's going to empty those folders, but at least it's not so disruptive. But I wanted to share that because I couldn't think of anything else off the top of my head except quickly creating that rule, which really took care of things. So had to share that. So a few links. Last week, somebody in the chat, and I forget who actually did this. They mentioned Ventoy, Ventoy, and I'm displaying that if you're watching on YouTube. Oh, by the way, if you are watching on YouTube, hey, right below, click, smash the subscribe button for me. I would really appreciate that. Well, Ventoy is a utility to be able to, you can quickly download it. It's free, and you can easily create a bootable stick, but you can do it with different operating systems. So this, along with the link I'm recommending, and all this is in the show notes, this is another utility. Oh, by the way, it was Tim who recommended Ventoy. Rufus. Now, Rufus allows you to select an ISO. So you get to pick the device, then you can point to the ISO, and you can, standard Windows installation. It literally, you just check boxes for the cluster size, the file system. You can make it real easy, but mainly if someone hands you or you download an ISO and you got to make a bootable USB stick, which the most common one that I used to do was when I was deploying an Untangle, I would use Rufus. I would download the ISO, the Linux Untangle distribution, and then make the bootable USB. So take a look at those two utilities. They're a little different, and I think, both worthy of being in your bookmarks. So it's Ventoy and Rufus. Okay. I've been running into a problem for a couple weeks where Adobe Acrobat DC, the real version that I pay monthly for, and it keeps crashing or locking up. I'm making an invoice and then I convert it to a PDF and it just starts spinning, non-responsive, and it was just horrible. 2 clients having the same problem. So this is a serious issue that is still happening with Adobe. And I've been reading where there's been some updates that I don't know. I don't think they fixed it all, because I'm going to describe what I've done here that helped. It really helped, but it didn't completely solve the problem. So this is the Creative Cloud Cleaner tool. You just download the tool, and then what you have to do is then run it, and it's at like a command prompt that, it's not a GUI interface, and you just follow the instructions, cleaning everything. You're going to have to reboot, and then you might have to reinstall Adobe DC, which I did not have to reinstall, but just the cleaning and this like repair tool helped. But now I have an issue. When I open a PDF from Outlook, it kind of hangs for a second and then stops and then picks up again. And at least it doesn't crash Adobe, where before Adobe was just, locking up and crashing. So it's fixed a lot of the issues, but not all of them. So any other suggestions out there, I would greatly appreciate it. But this Adobe link for this cleaner tool will also be in the show notes. Okay. My Malwarebytes weekly email, they mentioned a hack from 23andMe. But the real frustrating part of this 23andMe data breach is 23andMe blames the customers and the users of 23andMe for not having their accounts secure enough. No, sorry, that doesn't fly here. That's not what's going on here. And how does someone be able to breach all of your data? And it wasn't just a couple, it was 6.9 million users, their DNA and results compromised, and everybody that they're linked to. So you can just imagine, just how bad that is. And that's disgraceful. And, what do you do? There were a lot of users who were victims of this data breach. And I have a link. There's a lot of links, and I picked the TechCrunch link on this to go over. In an email sent to TechCrunch late on Saturday, 23andMe spokesperson Katie Watson confirmed that hackers accessed the personal information of about 5.5 million people who opted in to the 23andMe's DNA relatives feature, which allows customers to automatically share some of their data with others. The stolen data includes the person's name, birth year, relationship labels, the percentage of DNA shared with relatives, ancestry reports, and self-reported location. It's a lot of info. Now, if you're out there thinking, wow, should I really do that swab and send it into Ancestry or 23andMe? Think long and hard about that. I was a big supporter of submitting DNA until I got my results from Ancestry, and let me tell you, that was, that's for another long story. I started mentioning in the pre-show. So all this brings up is, to me, is nightmares. And just think long and hard. Your DNA results are out there, and is that something? It's like all your medical info. It's when there's a breach. How do we do this? How do we? Let me get back here for a second. What do you do? Well, the main breach here was a hack of the common password that's used by all the users. Most of the users, the password here they used for 23andMe, they used what, maybe it was an Adobe breach, and it was the same password they used with their login for Adobe. Remember, if you continue to use the same password over and over and over for everything, well, all it takes is one breach. And what's going to happen is that email and that password is instantaneously going to be tested for every credit card, every bank. And this is going to happen so quickly, where it's all automated. And that's the big thing. It's not that there's, of course you got all that personal information, but anything, try to use a password manager, use RoboForm, use LastPass, use something that'll generate a complicated password for every individual login. And as long as you have that app and the master password, you're good to go. You'll be able to log in. And then, of course, I'm going to reiterate a couple things here that I'm going to kind of go off on a tangent. Have a separate email for financial institutions. Let's say you bank at ABC Bank. I want you to have a separate email that you do not use anywhere else in the world. You just use it for the bank. Or a separate email that you just use for your credit card. Make sure that you turn on two-factor authentication. Now, most software today, most financial institutions, they force that, which I'm glad. But if they don't, turn it on. Always just give your cell phone. Anytime you're filling out something, use your cell phone, because that's how they're going to authenticate with a text message for a code for you to log back in. Now, something happened right before the show. I got a call from a client that's not a regular client. We might help the person once or twice a year. Well, her system now, when she logs on, she doesn't know the password. And she said the hint for the password is a phone number and be prepared and says it will cost you $500 for your password. This is a new one that we're seeing. I told her to turn the machine off. I scheduled my son, Mike Jr., to head over there tomorrow morning, and I'll follow up on this next week. And I've given him a couple things to do. It's a Windows 10 Pro, and he's going to take the USB stick and then do that hack where you can bypass and go in and create another admin account and then see what's going on with her account. Probably just create a new profile for her, delete that profile, and make sure all of her files, got to make sure that it's not ransomware attached to all the files, but she let someone connect. It was an email that she believed the email that the false charges were made. She called, they remoted into the computer, then logged off. What they did is they reset the password to something where she can't get in. I'm hoping it's that simple and that it's no worse than that. So gonna report back, and that's what got me thinking about the security. And here's what I preach, and my son preaches. It's the number one thing on the list when I'm doing any cybersecurity tips or tricks. I tell everybody this, and I say promote it and tell everybody, whatever you read, whatever someone says, whatever an email, a text, a phone call, a website, if someone's asking you to do something, don't do it. Don't believe them. Don't do it. And that'll stop this. Just don't do it. Don't answer the phone. Let it go to voicemail if you have a landline. I don't have landline anymore. Let it go to voicemail. Even on my business VoIP line will get spam, and they don't leave a message because they're not going to. They want to get a live human being to con. So don't obey. The Facebook hacks come from people who cut and paste. That says, oh, cut and paste this, send it to, make sure 12 people. I need 12 of my, you're not a real friend if you don't cut and paste this. Don't do it. Anything that anybody or anything asks you to do something, don't do it. It's as simple as that. If we promote that, that'll be a big step in reducing the amount of breaches and hacks and all the social engineering problems that come with this and the identity theft. This is how we protect ourselves, by just not listening to anybody. Okay, let's get back on track here. So Taz reminded me this week, he was looking for, Mike, how do I get the Windows Media Player on a system that's not available? That it's like Windows 11. And what you got to do is, I talked about this, but I didn't provide the link. So in the show notes for tonight, I'm going to have the link of where to find the features, and it's a step-by-step on how to quickly download and get the Windows Media Player. So, and it's for all the operating systems. So next, Taz sent me this link that I didn't even know existed. So I figured, oh, okay, let me throw this out there. It is support.google.com. And it's how can we help you with Google. Now, I got to tell everybody that, I haven't been able to get casting to work on Chrome. Well, it's very interesting that the support site here also could not help me solve that problem. So I thought that was very, because that's the first thing I typed. I was like, ooh, hey, Google support. Yes. Okay. I got the same results I get when I typed in Google. So I don't know how good this is going to be, but hey, it's there. And Taz, thanks for sending it to us. I appreciate it. It is time for email. So let me get back to my notes and let's see. We got the Google support. Oh, okay. First, this is a text file, and I already tested the link that I'm going to have in the show notes, and it is a response from Dexter, who what he did was put a file together on how to have a hosted exchange be able to auto discover from SureWeb that if they had an exchange local server. Now, I actually had a registry fix that I talked about that had these items in it a while ago. I have to compare line by line. It's to exclude explicit Office 365 endpoint, exclude the auto discovered domain, and exclude the root domain. The instructions are in the text file. You can where to go to hack the registry. And this, I'm going to try to do this manually for one of my accounts where I got 2 new users on systems where they don't work. And this is where, and it's when you, thank you, Dexter's in the chat. It's when you replace Exchange server with a hosted exchange that's not Microsoft. Because if it's Microsoft, it'll find its way back to Microsoft 365. Now, I removed Auto Discover at the command line for the shell admin of Exchange, because that's what you're supposed to do. But guess what? I followed those instructions for multiple clients, and that does not work, even though it says it does. And I followed all of those steps from Microsoft on how to uncouple Auto Discover from your domain. And even though I followed all the instructions, they executed successfully, it doesn't do it properly. So that was just a frustrating, problem. All right, let's get back. This is from Zrinko. Remember the auto backup problem? Fab's auto backup with the folder? Well, guess what? Remember I read an email where he also had it? Well, check this out. And I'm going to show you the screenshot. This is from Zrinko. I worked with Fabrice on the issue that we both experienced where the additional folders did not copy files and have figured it out. It turns out to be caused by the user error. I suspect that both of us did the same thing. And that is, we clicked on a single arrow in the image folder, which ignores the subfolders. The top icon, the double arrow, is what you need to do to get both folders and their contents. So let me quickly show this on the screen. When you're at that point for extra files and folders, what you do is you use the double arrow, not the single arrow. You know what? I'm going to do the double arrow, but I'm still going to copy that just in case, because that was just dreadful what happened to me with that client. And that's never happened before on using Fabs, where I decided, let me click additional folders and not do it manually. And then the only time I do it, I'm burned because I selected the single arrow instead of the double arrow. So that's a warning for everybody who has purchased Fabs Auto Backup and you're doing additional folders. Zincro, thank you for responding. I really appreciate that. Now, to the rescue. Remember the label printer problem we were having? My son resolved it. And I want to thank Neil in San Antonio. When adding Windows 11 systems to my business network, I find changing the security settings in shared to everyone and giving them full permission helps. I also go to advanced section under security tab and add everyone as the owner of the shared device. Apply replacing the ownership and the child inheritance settings. I heard you also used SMB. With SMB, I have more luck using the device name, not IP, in the MS credentials. I do a lot of large shipping stores. All the printers get a user copier and password exclamation point in the credentials. Have to add it on each machine, but it keeps them connected. Neil, that's exactly what he did. He created a Zebra account on the systems that are sharing, and that's what was used, and it is a tremendous tip. And that's why I love doing this show. Here's multiple problems that I've talked about, and I get solutions, and they work, and I pass it on. And Neil, thank you so much for that. My son looked like a hero in getting that to work with no problem. Literally yesterday, he was on site. So very, very, very cool. What else do we got? Oh, okay. This is my friend Joe. And he says, I seem to recall that you recently have been having issues with Firefox. Yes. Firefox has been driving me nuts. I am so unhappy. And he says, I too have recently been having issues also to the point where it's unstable. What browser did you finally go to? And that is because of the chat, and that is Vivaldi. And that's from Tim in the chat, who recommended. And last week I talked about that. That browser works great. I have been very, very happy with it. And it's the same extensions as Chrome. It's a version of, it's a Chromium based browser that I think is cleaner and faster. So that's like Brave. I should be using Brave more, but I talked about it, but I don't use it enough because I fall back into my habit. I have all my toolbars, all my extensions. I'm just so lazy with using Firefox until I get so frustrated I can't take it anymore, and then I got to go use something else. So, hey, keep the tips rolling in. MikeTechShow@gmail.com. Really appreciate it. Reach out to me if you need any help with anything, especially where I can put my consulting cap on and I can help your business with anything, or a friend or a client where you need me to partner with to help solve something. I will gladly do it. In the show notes for every show, there's a donation button. I would greatly appreciate anybody contributing to the show, and keeps the lights on, and I really, really appreciate it. That's it for tonight's show. And remember, next week, no show Thursday night on the 18th. It will be on the 20th at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. Bye-bye, everybody.